y'all. So, welcome to Sword and Scroll. Today, we're going to be reacting to this video titled White Guy Explains Black Hebrew Israelites. So, I've been a Hebrew Israelite since I was about 5, so really my whole life. I've been a part of 3 different camps, and I just thought that my perspective could be useful in just seeing, like what this guy brings out in this video. So, I'm gonna just get it started real quick and see what he comes out with.
The Israelites, an ancient and prophetic people that have captured the minds of theologians, scholars, and historians alike. They lived in the modern-day Levant, and their history survives in the most consequential book of all time, the Bible. They lived, struggled, peaked, and eventually declined all throughout their lifetime, but left behind them a treasure trove of wisdom that influences most of the world well into today. But what if I told you that we was Israelites?
Extremely racist and disrespectful right there. I've watched this video all the way through, obviously, so I got all these sources. I kind of just gonna back up everything, and I'm gonna just delete them as I go. But obviously, we was Israelites kind of comes from this we was kings like slang term. As we can see here, we was kings is an internet slang term and derogatory meme. It is most commonly used as a mocking response to Afrocentric historical theories that claim sub-Saharan Africans were the original ancient Egyptian pharaohs. The phrase itself is written in a stereotypical pseudo-dialect meant to sound uneducated and is frequently used to demean black people who express pride in their historical heritage. According to the Anti-Defamation League, it is often accompanied by racist tropes and imagery. So, off the bat, obviously, this guy is probably not going to be giving us a fair shot. Obviously, we're going to still see, but just want to make that known that that's not. If you hear people talk like that, they're not being nice to you. That's extremely disrespectful, and we don't dip down to that, but we do make note. All right, that's
Folks, welcome back to The Narrative with me, your host, Will Sexton, the host with the most and the most spikes on my outfit. I think you can tell from the title, thumbnail, and
most Hebrews don't dress like that. Just to say, I haven't met any dressing like that. Mostly, it's just like fringes and stuff like that. But outside of that, nothing too
show that this is an episode about the Black Hebrew Israelites. Now, I wanted to do this episode because, one, it's a fascinating topic, and two, I see a lot of misunderstandings going on about them. I see people constantly conflating them with the Nation of Islam, a group who I actually did a whole episode on that you guys seem to love. So I guess you can consider this a follow-up, but they are two different groups with two entirely different theologies. And while some groups overlap, the Black Hebrew Israelites are much older and arguably the same amount of insane. Now, the story of the Black Hebrew Israelites, though, is fairly interesting. In many ways, it really is a story of America. It's an American story. It's one that centers itself around key American events and real historical conditions. And while it's funny, yes, to laugh at the theology, something that we certainly will do throughout this video, it is interesting to consider it as an American story. I mean, is it really so different from the American story behind Manifest Destiny, i.e. Mormonism?
Hi, I'm Kai.
These are all questions that will be asked throughout the video.
I'll say this. One, definitely is taking every single chance to belittle us for some reason. I don't know what his problem is, but I'm going to just let that keep playing. I will say, though, I had a friend who was actually Mormon when I was younger, and obviously I've been a Hebrew my whole life, basically. So I was able to actually understand their religion to a pretty good extent. And I would definitely say as Hebrews, we're much more closer to mainstream Christianity. We believe in the Bible as our main book. We don't venerate we don't have a John Smith type of character. All of the people who we venerate are prophets or Christ himself. And it's not like we worship prophets, it's like the same relationship, I feel like. Only thing is that our connection to the prophets is understood as a bloodline. That's really it. But yeah.
Oh, and they're questions you should ask yourself. But moreover, I think we're all here for one reason, which is to figure out a little more about the Black Hebrew Israelites and what exactly they believe. But before we jump into all that, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and comment below what you want to see next. Folks, I really need you to comment, like, engage, all these things on the videos. I have a whole analytics guy, and he's telling me I got to do a harder CTA, that I have to do everything but jump through the screen and get you to do it for me. So I ask, if you
Like and
please at home,
subscribe to
be
my
sure to
channel,
like, subscribe, and let
actually.
me know what else you want to
First
see on
video,
the
okay?
channel. But with all that out of the way, we start our story not south of Mesopotamia, not north of Egypt, but in the south of the United States, in the blessed and ancient Holy Land of Chattanooga, Tennessee. Now, in order to understand the rise of Black Hebrew Israelitism, you have to understand the conditions from which it was born. See, in 1886 is when
He starts this whole narrative in 1886. However, the pieces, like I guess the formal, I guess classification by white America started in 1886. But let me show you guys this man called Olada Equina. Showed y'all this earlier, but Olada Equina, also known as Gustavus Vasa, was a Nigerian-born writer, sailor, merchant, and leading abolitionist. Enslaved as a child, he was transported via the Middle Passage, served in the Royal Navy, and bought his freedom in 1766. His 1789 autobiography, The Interesting Narrative, was a bestseller, vividly depicting ding 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 ding. Well, as freeman in London, he supported the British abolitionist movement, becoming one of the leading figures in the 1780s. Yeah, this is the book that we're about to read out of. Sold so well that 9 editions were published during his lifetime, and also helped secure passage of the British Slave Trade Act of 1807, which abolished the slave trade in Britain. So, like, this should be known. Like, he should have, like, I mean, like, he should be on, like, Frederick Douglass level. Like, like, at least for the Black Britons, which maybe he is, but I don't know. I haven't really heard too much about him. I found him through being a Hebrew, rather than just being like a regular Black American, but yeah, very important guy. But in his novel, right, as you can see, same guy. This is his like this is the title right here, The Life of Aluda Equino, or Gustavus Vasa, the African, written by himself. And then I got it skipped. But we compute the year from the day on which the sun crosses the line, and on its setting that evening, there is a general shout throughout the land. At least I can speak from my own knowledge. Throughout our vicinity, the people at the same time make a great noise with rattles, not unlike the basket rattles used by children here, though much larger. Hold up their hands to heaven for a blessing. It is then the great offerings are made, and those children whom our wise men foretell will be fortunate are then presented to different people. I remember many used to come see me. I was carried about to others for that purpose. They have many offerings, particularly at full moons, generally two at harvest, before the fruits are taken out of the ground. And when any young animals are killed, sometimes they offer up part of them as sacrifice. These offerings, when made by ones of the heads of a family, serve for the whole. I remember we often had them at my father's and my uncle's, and their families have been present. Some of our offerings are eaten with bitter herbs. Mhm. We had a saying among us to anyone of a cross temper that if they were to be eaten, they should be eaten with bitter herbs. So this relates to Exodus 12, where in the Bible, the Israelites are also instructed to sacrifice, and eat meat with bitter herbs. So we're going to start at verse 3. Tell the whole community of Israel that on the 10th day of this month, each man is to take a lamb for his family, one for each household. If any household is too small for a whole lamb, They must share one with their nearest neighbor. Having taken into account the number of people there are, you are to determine the amount of lamb needed in accordance with what each person will eat. The animals you choose must be year-old males without defect. So these are young calves. And I think that's what it said, right? Yeah. When any young animals killed, and then right here it says the animals you choose must be year-old males without a defect. You may take them from the sheep or the goats. Take care of them until the 14th day of the month, when all the members of the community of Israel must slaughter them at twilight. Then they are to take some blood and put it on the sides and tops of the door frames of the houses where they eat the lambs. Obviously, this is for Passover. That same night they are to eat the meat roasted over the fire, along with bitter herbs and bread made without yeast. So this is already a connection to the Hebrews and to the Jews, and he doesn't even really mention it like explicitly right here. But moving on, we practice circumcision like the Jews. Obviously, we know the Jews practice circumcision and made offerings and feasts on that occasion in the same manner as they did. You have to understand his perspective that he was a black man who was in West Africa during the time of, of slaves getting, extracted from that place. And then he was also able to live in Europe and see what the European Jews did. So he had a once like he had a foot in both worlds, and his perspective is extremely valuable. But yes, oh my God, my coughing is killing me. We practiced circumcision like the Jews and made offerings and feasts on that occasion in the same manner as they did. Like them also, our children were named after some event, some circumstance, or fancied foreboding. At the time of their birth, I was named Olada, which in our language signifies vicissitude or fortunate or fortune. Also favored and having a loud voice and well spoken. I remember we never polluted the name of the object of our adoration. On the contrary, it was always mentioned with the greatest reverence, and we were totally unacquainted with swearing, and all those terms of abuse and reproach which find their way so readily and copiously into the language of more civilized people. The only expressions of that kind I remember were may you rot or may you swell. I have, or may rot or swell, or may a beast take you. I have before remarked that the natives of this part of Africa are extremely cleanly. This necessary habit of decency was with us as a part of religion, and therefore we had many purifications and washings, indeed almost as many, and used on the same occasions, if my recollection does not fail me, as the Jews. Those that touched the dead at any time were obliged to wash and purify themselves before they could enter a dwelling house. Every woman, too, at certain times was forbidden to come into a dwelling house or touch any person or anything we eat. I was so fond of my mother I could not keep from her, nor or avoid touching her at some of those periods, in consequence of which I was obliged to be kept out with her in a little house made for that purpose till offering was made, and then we were purified. What does this mean? Where does that come from? This comes from a practice talked about in Leviticus. We're going to start at 19. Yeah, we're going to start at 19. And if a woman have an issue, and her issue in her flesh be blood, period, she shall be put apart 7 days, and whosoever toucheth her shall be unclean until the even, like the evening. And everything that she lieth upon in her separation shall be unclean. Everything also that she sitteth upon shall be unclean. And whosoever toucheth her bed shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And whosoever touches anything that she sat upon shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and shall be unclean until the even. And if it be on her bed or anything that she sitteth, or when he toucheth it, he shall be unclean until the even. So this idea of a woman being unclean, you know what I mean? This is a Hebrew, you know, custom that is like consistent, you know what I mean, all the way through the Bible, right? And you may be thinking like, okay, well, Micah, like just because, you know what I mean, they do that, you know, there's probably a lot of cultures who do that, you know. That doesn't mean that they are Jews. Well, let me show you this. Verify I'm a human real quick. But all right. So this is a map, right? Of, well, there was a map. Okay. This is a map of Africa, obviously. New and accurate map of Negroland and the adjacent countries. This is dated from 1693, or it was created published in 1770 47. I guess that's when it was created, and I guess that's when the man lived. Yeah. Well, old ass map. But as we can see, the Kingdom of Judah, or Widdah, Slave Coast, is right in this, like, it's literally the Slave Coast, Kingdom of Judah, or Slave Coast, Widdah, or Slave Coast. You know, obviously, if we understand Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Jacob had 12 sons. One of those sons was named Judah. Judah in the Bible is said to carry the scepter, meaning the leadership amongst all the different tribes of God's people, you know? So that's a very big, important person in the Bible. And as we can see right here, for some reason, where all these different black people were taken from, there is called Kingdom of Judah for some reason. I don't know why that is a thing, but so I'll have to blur that out. All right, but here we have my ancestry test results. Okay, and as you can see, I am a West African man. Well, like you can just see the different countries. We got Nigeria, Benin and Togo, Mali, the Ivory Coast and Ghana, Nigeria, and then one Central and West Africa, and it tapers off right there. And I got a little bit of white. 15% white, 85% black. Had a Confederate grandfather. I found that out through Ancestry. That was pretty funny. But yeah. Um yeah, so that's what we got there, right? Obviously, as you can see, a large amount of my cluster lines up right on this Kingdom of Judah or Widdah Slave Coast area. Because as you can see, there's Nigeria, Benin, Togo, and I think this one, yeah, this one has a better, more zoomed in view. So there's Benin, Togo, Nigeria, Cameroon is in these borders. You got Ghana, Burkina Faso, Mali. These were my different percentages. But so if we really look on this map and we try to trace, okay, where is this modern day Kingdom of Judah at? We can go, okay, we can see this is kind of like an M shape, kind of like an M shape. And in this Benin Togo region, that seems to be where the the kingdom of Judah was. And I just think that's just so interesting. And like I'm gonna keep obviously I got a bunch of different sources and this channel will kind of unfold it more. But like I just want to share this with people because obviously like I'm not like like I feel like a lot of people have similar ancestry to me here in America. So this is a real thing. And I'm gonna keep going in on it. But yeah, next this one. This one. But yeah, so Benin Togo area, Nigeria, Mali, Ghana, Kingdom of Judah. It's very interesting. But all right, let's get back to it.
We have the first instance of real, true Black Hebrew Israelite.
So that was supposed to explain that This does not start in 1886. That this is in our blood. And actually, I didn't. That I was supposed to finish this. Yep, this was. I was supposed to show you guys this one as well. Okay. So obviously, we have the Kingdom of Judah, Slave Coast. That's where a lot of black people come from, American black people. I myself am one of those. So this right here, I meant to show this earlier. I'll probably edit it around again, but this is a map. Martin Beheim's Erdapfel 1492 facsimile globe gores. So this is a map that was created 1492, and it talks about something very interesting to the topic today, right? This is 1492, and oh my God, I'm a beast. Golfo de Judeo. This is obviously a map of Africa right here. As you can see, kind of like the shape, and then just go back into it. Oraya de Judeo, and then it's Golfo de Judeo. So right here I have it queued up. This is from Portuguese, Gulf of Judea, Gulf of Judea. So same place, but mind you, just another map saying the same thing. Like by the way, there were Jews here. Um, let's see what Golfo or no Oraya de Judea means. Oraya. Did I spell that right? Maybe like prayer. Well, either way, you've got Gulf of Jews, you've got Area de Judeo. It's known that there are Jews in the western part of Africa. It's just a known fact. All right. But so right here, this is by the way, this book right here is called The Earth and Its Inhabitants, Africa. This book was written in 1888. So yeah, I just had to show y'all that really quick. Now if I can get back to the page really fast. 267. All right. Oh, it's 262. All right. So, The Earth and Its Inhabitants. This is a book from 1888, and it's talking about the West African region. The east of Great Popo begins the Dahomey territory, guarded by the important town of Gil- Gil- known to Europeans and the various names of Fida, Heveda, Wida, or Wida. The old writers called it Judah, and its inhabitants were said to be Jews, while neighboring river Alala, whose name is Ephra, became the Euphrates. During the flourishing days of the slave trade, from 16 to 18,000 were annually transported from Ajuda, as Portuguese called this place, which at that time had a population of 35,000. The tutelar deity of Wida is the snake, and its famous fetish temple is served by priestesses called mothers or sisters of serpents, and recruited by the abduction of young girls on feast days. So that's very interesting. But now we have a concrete understanding that now me just saying that okay, Jacob had 12 sons, one of them's name was Judah. So now black people are Judah. It's not like that's not just a like this there's more I guess substantiation here with that. As you can see, these people right here were genuinely known to be Jews. And if you're a black person like me, you have ancestry right here. And your people were taken from right here for the most part. I find it pretty interesting. Find that pretty interesting. All right. but let's keep going. So this does not start in 1886. It starts much, much before that. It starts much before even the sources that I showed you. It's a very complex historical topic, but I feel like there needs to be somebody out here to explain it. But let me stop yapping.
Theology. Mind you, 1886, this is less than 30 years after the end of the Civil War. This is peak post-Civil War South, okay? This is a hard time to be a black person, to say the least. It's actually a period of time that I spent my last video talking about, granted from the more metropolitan and more white perspective, but here in the South, while all that was going on up north with Teddy Roosevelt and the bull moose, down in the South, things were a little bit different. Now, obviously, during slavery, slaves weren't allowed to read. And so one of the first things that a lot of formerly enslaved people did was learn to read. It was a very cheap, simple, and easy way for them to kind of enjoy their new freedom, as many of them, again, were sharecroppers. So they
Like that's like a really simplification of wanting to read. Oh, it's just a nice way to enjoy my freedom. I mean, I guess, but like it's also a way to like empower yourself in like a nation that like has historically subjugated you. I don't know. Let me just
they weren't really like that free. They basically went from like working as slaves and then living on the property to now they're working basically unpaid so that they can live on the property. Do you see how it's just kind of slavery again? And like, yeah, okay, is that messed up? Sure, but like, can we give them credit for fun? Like, that's some shady shit. They really got him on that one. Like, can we like, come on? Can we give the devil his due? Anyways, as many
that's the thing where whether you're white or black, if you truly believe in the Bible, you cannot have that type of attitude towards people, just anybody being subjugated like that. Like, give the devil his due. Like, that's the number one thing you can say after like slavery and like sharecropping. Like, I don't know. I feel like this is such like a 13-year-old just like, yeah, we got like. I mean, I don't know. That's just like why? Why does that make you smile? But we stay above that. We call it out and we move on.
sought out reading, the book that was easiest for them to get was the Bible. The Bible was everywhere in the South. And at the same time, people are coming from the North to evangelize the new South because Reconstruction era largely failed. Like the South was not in a good spot, something that I definitely want to make a video on. And so this is the South at the time. You have recently freed black people, carpetbaggers from the North, that being opportunistic businessmen looking to profit off of Reconstruction. You have preachers coming from the North, and you have all these white former slave owners who are now farm owners who own all the sharecroppers. It's a fascinating time and a very, very hard time. But one man in 1886 would stand out from the rest of the people around him, that man being one Frank Cherry. Now, Frank Cherry was a Mason and just basically a Protestant Christian of like a very mainline kind of contemporary form at the time. And actually very little is known about his original life, but we do know that he knew Hebrew and Yiddish, that he somehow managed to teach himself the language of Reconstructed Hebrew and Yiddish that modern Jews were speaking at the time. And eventually in 1886, he claimed to have been granted a vision from God. Christianity wasn't the true religion. That Christianity was an evil falsehood placed upon the black people to take them away from their true faith being Judaism, the Israelite religion of the Old Testament. This is because he was told by God, supposedly, that black Americans were the true descendants of the biblical Israelites, and that the Exodus narrative
Hold on, I'm gonna go back.
to have been granted a vision from God. Christianity wasn't the true religion. That Christianity was an evil falsehood placed upon the black people to take them away from their true faith being Judaism.
All right. So this is basically true, I believe. And a lot of Hebrews believe that, obviously through slavery, Christianity was forced upon our ancestors. It wasn't something that we could really just freely chose. And right here, Yeah. So this right here is Louisiana's Code Noir. Um, it, as you can see, the description here says to regulate relations between slaves and colonists, the Louisiana Code Noir or Slave Code, based largely on that compiled in 1685 for French Caribbean colonies, was introduced in 1724 and remained in force until the United States took possession of Louisiana in 1803. The code's 54 articles regulated the status of blacks and free blacks, as well as relations between masters and slaves. The entire body of laws appears below. All right, so this is basically just laws for slaves. And as you can see, number one, in the Black Code of Louisiana, it says decrees the expulsion of Jews from the colony. Now, I don't understand what the Jews at that time had to do with black people. I don't know if they're talking about expelling black Jews or if they're talking about expelling white Jews. You'll see later that there's a difference. But that's number one. Number one rule in Code Noir in the black slave codes: get the Jews away from slaves in this colony. Get them away, and then makes it imperative on masters to impart religious instruction to their slaves, permits the exercise of Roman Catholic creed only. Every other mode of worship is prohibited. Negroes placed under the direction of supervision of any other person than a Catholic are liable to confiscation. Sundays and holidays are to be strictly observed. All Negroes found on work on these days are to be confiscated. You know, marrying with the blacks, yada, yada, yada. But as you can see, the first five black codes here mention religion. And that is a big point of contention, you know what I mean, with just like our people, you know, kind of coming into this Hebrew understanding is that like, Christianity was forced upon us. So that is true.
The Israelite religion of the Old Testament. This is because he was told by God, supposedly, that black Americans were the true descendants of the biblical Israelites, and that the Exodus narrative from the Bible, a part of the Bible that now a lot of formerly enslaved people are reading, that was actually written about them in advance. So the prophets of old.
That's not what we believe. It's not written about us in advance. It's written about our ancestors, and that story kind of just repeats itself. I'm going to read the curses in Deuteronomy later, but that is more of the basis um of our identity is more Deuteronomy. I would feel like I feel, but yeah.
Write Exodus and they write about this enslavement, but all the things that actually happened in Exodus happened later in America to black people. And that's their main ideology here.
Yeah, we don't believe that. Like we believe that the events in Exodus happened then, and then due to the curses in Deuteronomy, they are doomed to happen again if we stray away from the law, statutes, and commandments of God. And it's prophesied that the Jews in the last days would do that. So
He also believes that white people are evil, that they are inherently evil and were brought by Satan onto earth to take the Israelites away from their true covenant with God. And this is an idea.
all right, that is another point of contention I have to bring up. We don't believe all white people are evil. Like, I'm sorry, it's just not a thing within our community. But I'm gonna just show you guys these two right here that kind of substantiate and kind of talk about our theological view of white people, right? So here we have Romans 11. Man, my computer just wants to go any slower. So yep, we have Romans 11, chapter 11, verse 17 through 24. If some of the branches have been broken off, and you, though a wild olive shoot, have been grafted in among the others and now share in the nourishing sap from the olive root, do not consider yourself to be superior to those other branches. This is a verse talking in metaphor to the Gentiles who are receiving in the blessing of Abraham, you know what I mean? Which the Hebrews at this point, you know what I mean, aren't being able to fully enjoying due to their, you know, just lack of obedience and disregarding of the Messiah. But yeah, all right. You do not support the root, but the root supports you. You will say then, the branches were broken off so that I could be grafted in. Granted, but they were broken off because of unbelief, and you stand by faith. Do not be arrogant, but tremble, for if God did not spare the natural branches, he will not spare you either. Consider therefore the kindness and sternness of Yah. Sternness to those who fell, but kindness to you, provided that you continue in his kindness. Otherwise, you also will be cut off. And if they do not persist in unbelief, they will be grafted in, for God is able to graft them in again. After all, if you were cut off of an olive tree, that is by wild by nature, and contrary to the nature were given into a cultivated olive tree, how much more readily will these, the natural branches, be grafted into their own olive tree? So, how I interpret this is the wealth that the Gentile nations, right, like white people and just like you know a lot of the other races just who are doing well right now are receiving, you know, I believe that that's just because, but I think it's generally white people that are like that this is talking about, that they are actually able to receive in the blessing of God and they're able to go to heaven and everything. um in that I believe it was another scripture that talked about them being exalted to make us like more like basically jealous, you know, like to show like, hey, you know, like these people are getting it and this is supposed to be your birthright technically. So yeah. This is another verse right here that talks about in the end days. This is what the Lord Almighty says. In those days, 10 people from all languages and nations will take firm hold of one Jew by the hem of his robe and say, let us go with you, because we have heard that God is with you. So right there, it's talking about how in the end days, you know, this, you know, obviously Babylon is fallen. You know, this current system is going to fall down, and people are going to be looking at the true Jews of the Bible and saying, you know, let's go with you. God is with you. You know, so that's why at least all the Hebrew camps that I've been a part of, you know, my parents are like a little bit older, so like we were never just like hateful to white people, you know, like we're regular black people. Like it's kind of hard to do that. But yeah. Um yeah, we don't view white people as like less than or anything. I've been in camp every single like group I've been a part of has had white people. Like and they're respected, they're not second class citizens. Like they're because it's like at the end, you know, I think I have the verse up here. Like at the end, in the end times, it's going to be all nations clad in white. The role of us as Hebrews, even the reason why I'm even making this video is because we are supposed to be a light unto the nations. We're supposed to be an example, you know what I mean, sent by God, you know, and that's just how our people, you know, that is the deal that our people agreed to, you know, on at Sinai. So we got to hold that up and always respect that. All right.
Yeah, that's actually kind of going around the black community because, like I said, they're just now really reading the Bible for the first time. And you have to understand that the Exodus narrative was removed from most Bibles that were given out to slaves or read to slaves by those who could read at church services for slaves. So they weren't aware of the Exodus narrative. And so now they're given complete Bibles and they're able to read them and they're seeing a lot of themselves reflected in Exodus, which that on its own isn't that crazy to say. Like that's not crazy to say that there's like a historical similarity between the enslavement of the Israelites under the Pharaoh and the enslavement of black Americans under, well, everybody else. But see, Prophet Cherry is the
So you can see the correlation. I'm happy you can see that correlation, Mr. White Guy Will Sexton, because we're gonna go right here and we're going to get right into those correlations. So this verse right here, I think, um outside of if my people come back to me and do my commandments, I think this might be the backbone of like the Hebrew Israelite community, like identity. You know what I mean? And ideology is this kind of understanding of just all these different points, right? So here in Deuteronomy 28, the yeah, he is basically detailing what's going to happen if we fully obey the Lord God and watch and follow all his commandments. And so these are all the blessings of Deuteronomy 28. Pretty short, 14 verses. And then for the sis goes from 15 to 68. Yeah, 68. So yeah. Obviously they like the writers of this kind of understood that maybe they put a little bit more onus on the disobedience because they knew kind of the tendencies of our people. But all right, let's check this out, man. And the Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies, and thou shalt go out one way against them and flee 7 ways for them, and thou shalt be removed unto all the kingdoms of the earth. And thy carcass shall be meat unto all fowls of the air, and thou unto beasts of the earth no man shall fray them away. Obviously, we know about the genocide in the Congo during the 1800s by Belgium. We know about the different wars, you know what I mean, of the Portuguese in West Africa. Obviously, all the carnage that's happened just in Africa, like from now all the way, from to that point. Um, I feel like all these fit, the Lord will smite thee with the botch fly, I believe, of Egypt, and with emerods. I don't know if that's hemorrhoids. I don't know. And with the scab and with the itch, whereof thou canst not be healed. I mean, obviously, Africa's been one of the most ravaged disease places, historically. It's getting better now, but the Lord shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart. Thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt only be oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build a house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and thou shalt not gather the grapes thereof. You're gonna be doing it, and you're gonna be doing all these things, and someone else is gonna be, you know what I mean, capitalizing off of your work. Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and thou shalt not be restored to thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt not have none to rescue them. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fret and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. This happened during slavery. This also happened in Portugal during the times of the Inquisition, but that'll be another video. Fruit of thine hand and all thy labor shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt only be oppressed and crushed away. The fruit of thy land, France still today is profiting off of Africa. You know what I mean? This is the fruit of thy hand being eaten by a nation which you don't even know. It's so far away you don't even know. I don't know if this happened to the white Jews. I just don't I don't know their history like that, but I haven't seen anything. So that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see. The Lord shall smite thee in the knees and in the legs with a sore botch that cannot be healed from the sole of thy foot unto the top of thy head. The Lord shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shalt serve other gods, wood and stone. So how this is interpreted is obviously wood is the Christian cross, right, of Rome. You know what I mean? It's not even really what Christ would have stood for. It's just, their execution, tool. That's how I see it. And then stone, that's Islam. Obviously, they walk around that Kaaba stone, and so it's wood and stone. You know, and that's what we have to worship. Obviously, in West Africa, you have a lot of black Muslims. You know what I mean? Historically, the Moors, you've had a lot of black Muslims, and then now we have a lot of black Christians as well. Black Muslims still in America, but wood and stone. It's just an interesting use of words there. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither the Lord shall lead thee. So, a byword. I'm sorry, in every nation, in every single culture, the closer you are to blackness, the more just disregarding society you are. I mean, that happens in Latino culture. It's the same thing in the caste system for India. Like, it's the same thing in like Chinese that they want the more lighter Chinese are the ones who are like, you know what I mean, more loved. Like, it's kind of crazy. Like all beauty standards are based off of like black hatred. Like, you got to really think of the reality that we're living in. Yep. Let me see. Wood and stone and the byword among all people in the sleep. Okay. And thou shalt carry much seed out into the field, and shalt gather out but little in, for the locust shall come consume it. Consume it. Thou shalt plant vineyards and dress them, but thou shalt neither drink of the wine nor gather the grapes, for the worm shall eat them. Thou shalt have olive trees throughout all thy coasts, but thou shalt not anoint thyself with the oil, for thine olive oil shall cast its fruit. Thou shalt begin sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. I don't remember when the white Jews ever had a generational slavery put against them, you know, and whatever slavery that they did go through, which I believe they did have some short stint, you know what I mean? If you got to think, the Bible is the most consequential book in history. Do you believe that the captivity that's supposed to be all this bad, you know what I mean, is the the captivity that they went through is not of biblical proportions. What black people went through, in my opinion, is more of a biblical proportion of suffering. Like, it's suffering that is so bad that we as black people, we just laugh about it because it's just like, bro, and then they did this, and it's like you can't even like it's just like, damn, like, dang. I don't know. I don't know. But they never had to go through this. We are the only people who have had to go through this, who have had to lose every single part of our identity. You know what I mean? And totally subjugated into a evil beast system set against our soul. But yeah, all thy trees and fruit of thy land shall the locust consume. The stranger that is within thy gates, these shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. And he shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenedest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things. Therefore thou shalt serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from afar, from the end of the earth, as the swift as the eagle flieth. Now, America's is the eagle. Okay, let me stop. Let me stop playing. It's pretty interesting. A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. I mean, think about, like, we don't speak Germanic or Latin, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. I mean, even today they kill black kids. You know what I mean? They whipped little kids back then. They obviously white people, Europeans, they don't care. They like whatever it is that they need to get, they make sure that they're good. You know what I mean? On a cultural scale, on like a large scale, not individually, but when they get into government, the history is there. But yeah, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. That's what we went through. Now, who else went through this? And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy hand until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thine kind, or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, until thy high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou trustest throughout all thy land, and he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which the Lord God thy God hath given thee. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, and the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters. This happened as well historically in Africa. You know what I mean? Like this is a thing. This also happened in the siege of Masada in 73 AD. Um, and the Lord thy God hath given thee in the siege and in the straitness, wherein thine enemies shall distress thee, so that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil toward his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children which he shall leave, so that he will not give to any of them the flesh of his children whom he shall eat, because he hath nothing left in him in the siege, and in the straitness wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee in all thy gates. Obviously, we know the Romans were known for using siege tactics, and they used it against the ancient Israelites. They also yeah, they used it against the ancient Israelites. The tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness, her eye shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter, and toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children which she shall bear, for she shall eat them for want of all things secretly in the siege of straitness, wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee in thy gates. And I don't know, this is something that is more of just an opinion or an idea, but I do think, just the rise of like abortion and like just how like prominent it is within black culture and stuff, like I could see this kind of in like a metaphorical way, kind of being like that, where it's like the man will eat his children, the woman will eat her children, because it's like you're consuming, you're putting out that fire for your own substance. Like you're gonna have an abortion to sustain like your own life, that we're not even looking towards the future anymore, and what comes next, because everything is just day to day. That's just survival mentality. You know, that's that's just an idea, opinion. It's not scripture, but it's a way you can interpret it. If thou wilt not observe to do all the words of this law that are written in this book, that thou mayest fear this glorious and fearful name, the Lord thy Yah, then the Lord will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed, even great plagues, and of the long continuance, and sore sickness, and of long continuance. Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt, which thou wast afraid of, and he shall cleave unto thee. Also, every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law, them which will the Lord bring upon thee, until thou be destroyed. And ye shall be left few in number, whereas ye were the stars of heaven for a multitude, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of the Lord thy God. And it shall come to pass that as the Lord rejoiced over you to do you good and to multiply you, so the Lord will rejoice over you to destroy you and to bring you to naught. And ye shall be plucked off from of the land whither thou goest to possess it. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people from one end of the earth even until the other. Jews were not scattered. They emigrated places, they went places of their own volition, but black people are literally on every single continent of this earth. You can find, I mean, even in Russia, I was looking, the Abkhazians. I was like, wow. I'm like, there's really black people you could like, and it's like throughout history and even today. You know what I mean? Like, it's just what it is. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Christianity and Islam. That's and among these nations thou shalt find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest, but the Lord shall give thee a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and have none assurance of thy life. Oh, I get pulled over by the cops. You could die. You could possibly die. Like it's a quick time event, officer. Like, no, I'm playing. I'm playing. I'm not gonna do that. But in thy life shall hang in the balance and insurance. In the morning thou shalt say, would God if it were even, and at even thou shalt say, would God if it were morning. For the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and thou shalt be sold unto your enemies for bondman and bondwoman, and no man shall buy you. No man shall buy you means no man shall buy you out of this slavery, and you're not actually being sold to the literal country borders of Egypt. It's talking about in the Hebrew, it's talking about Misraim, and that's really just a house of bondage, right? So you're going to be taken to this ideological Egypt, or metaphorical, where it's like, I mean, you're still going to be a literal slave, but like it's just not like literal Egypt. Yeah, if y'all can dig it. But yeah, so all these different curses really in conjunction together really paint a certain picture, especially after I call it recency bias. But I mean with the other, I feel like sources, that I have seen, and just other, connections, is too many to for this to be a coincidence, of all these different things just so happening to, relate to our people.
First time in which a bloodline claim is made, where the guy says, no, we're not spiritually connected to ancient Israel. We literally are ancient Israel. This is the first time it gets said and gets preached to people. Now, the idea doesn't stay in the South very long, because if you know anything about American history at this time, this is very shortly before a wildly important event in American history. One that would come to define everything from American music, education, voting patterns, culture, food, everything in America. That being the Great Migration. Now, the Great Migration, like a lot of things happened around it, and I have thought about making a video just specifically about the Great Migration before, but it's a wildly important event in American history that people don't seem to understand, which is that after slavery ends, it's not a good time, okay, to be a black person in the South. And so a lot of the smarter ones decide, yeah, we probably shouldn't stick around here. And mind you, at the same time, all this immigration is happening in the North from Ellis Island. And so now they kind of see an opening. They go, okay, if we show up in New York, we show up in Philadelphia or whatever, we're not going to be alone as the outsiders, because there's Italians and there's Irish people. And so we're all going to just kind of show up, and we won't be completely outnumbered by WASP white people. Because mind you, at the time, that's who was definitively considered white. And so at that time, a lot of black people from between 1910 to 1940 all head up north. And one of these people is Mr. Prophet Cherry. He moves up north to Philadelphia and starts the now famous Church of the Living God, the pillar ground of truth for all nations. It's also there that he further studies his theology, having even more prophetic visions, such as revealing that the earth is square and
We don't believe that. Nobody I know. I've never met anybody who's thought the Earth is square. That's really funny though. But
professing that in 2,000 years, Jesus would return to start a race war. You have to remember that this is a time.
no, it's on the fact that Christ said He's coming back for His people, and that people, based off of at least the Hebrew Israelite interpretation, is that it's mainly going to be the actual Hebrew Israelites and the Gentiles who, you know what I mean, are with us, you know what I mean, who are with the Spirit of Christ, you know, it might from the outside look like a race war, you know, and I'm gonna show you guys some of the verses that I have kind of pertaining to that. So right here we have Revelation chapter 19, and I think we're gonna start at we'll start at verse 11 and we'll go to 16. I saw heaven standing open, and there before me was a white horse, whose rider was called Faithful and True. With justice he judges and wages war. His eyes are like the blazing fire, and on his head are many crowns. He has a name written on him that no one knows but he himself. He is dressed in a robe dipped in blood, and his name is the Word of God. Obviously, we know Christ is the living Word. The armies of heaven are following him, riding on white horses and dressed in fine linen, white and clean. Coming out of his mouth is a sharp sword, which to strike down the nations. He will rule them with an iron scepter. He treats the winepress of the fury of the wrath of God Almighty. On his robe and on his thigh, he has his name written, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. So obviously, we know that's Christ. And this does not seem like the oh, come here, come here, my darling. Like that's a very strong misconception in the Christian church that when he comes back he's gonna just oh my saints just come with me. No, he is coming to make war. You know, and he's not coming to make peace. He's oh Matthew. Look at that transition. Matthew chapter 10, verse 34. So this talks about when Christ comes back as well. And what does it say right here? Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter in law against her mother in law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Any whosoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. Right? We have to understand that this dude Christ, he actually has a backbone. He does not like. I feel like that's one thing that like I don't even understand how like the white Christian like it makes maybe I could have like a conversation with one of them, but like, how do you even like think of yourself as a Christian and be able to believe all these just evil things about black people? Like, I'm just like, how? That doesn't even make sense. You know what I mean? But you know, people have their rationalizations for things. You know, so I don't know. And then nobody's ever just full out racist. You know, I swear. But yeah, so that was another one. Just did Matthew. Just showed you this one. So right here, we also have Second Thessalonians, and we're gonna start at chapter 6. This is another prophecy of when Christ comes back. It says, God is just. He will pay back trouble to those who trouble you. So think of all the different curses that happen to his people, right? This whatever, if you want to call it karmic debt, if you want to call it just judgment, you know what I mean, or you know what I mean, or sin, right? The sin of the fathers, you know what I mean, goes down to the sons and to the third and fourth generation, you know. So at a certain point, all these different things that have happened within America, Babylon, you know what I mean, is going to, you know what I mean, come back, you know, on you. Like it's just how it happens. All this evidence that God's judgment is right, and as a result, you will be counted worthy of the kingdom of God for which you are suffering. God is just. He will pay back those who trouble you, Deuteronomy 28, and give relief to you who are troubled, and to us as well. This will happen when the Lord Jesus is revealed from heaven in blazing fire with his powerful angels. He will punish those who do not know Yah and do not obey the gospel of our Lord Christ. They will be punished with everlasting destruction and shut out from the presence of the Lord and from the glory of his might. on the day he comes to be glorified in his holy people and to be marveled at among all those who have believed. This includes you because you believed our testimony to you. So it, there's another thing where it says debts will be repaid. And then this is the last one, Isaiah 63, and we're going to start at chapter 1 or verse 1. Who is who is this that cometh from Edom with dyed garments from Basra? This that is glorious in his apparel, traveling in the greatness of his strength. I speak in righteousness, mighty to save. Wherefore art thou red in thine apparel, and thy garments like that treadeth in wine fat? So it's like, why is your clothes red? Why does it look like you've been trotting a wine press, when people step on the grapes and stuff? And it says, I have trodden the winepress alone, and of the people there is none with me. For I will tread them in mine anger, and trample them in my fury, and their blood shall be sprinkled upon my garments, and I will stain all my raiment. For the day of my vengeance is in mine heart, and the year of my redeemed is come. And I look, and there is none to help, and I wondered that there was none to uphold. Therefore mine own arm brought salvation unto me, and my fury it upheld me. I will tread down the people in mine anger, and make them drunk in my fury, and I will bring down their strength to the earth. I will mention the loving kindness of the Lord, and the praises of the Lord, according to that the Lord hath bestowed unto us, and the great goodness toward the house of Israel, which he has bestowed on them according to his mercies, and according to the multitude of his loving kindness. For he said, surely they are my people, children that will not lie. So he was their savior. So yeah, and they rebelled, and yeah. So that kind of just talks about, obviously the split between Jacob and Esau, Edom kind of being like the cultural representation of Esau, as just like a archetype, I guess. And is saying that Christ is going to be leaving Edom with blood covered garments, meaning that he's going to do some rearranging over in Edom. And so, obviously, I don't want to be doom and gloom, but that is kind of just what the Bible says.
in which other, like specifically black ideological voices are
Yeah, let's get back to the video.
to form. And it just so happens that while all this is going on, over in New York City, a quick train ride away, is one Marcus Garvey. Now, Marcus Garvey deserves his own video in every sense of the word. He is a profoundly important man who, like, history largely forgets that I think definitely needs some exposition. But for sake of brevity here, Marcus Garvey, he's the first black separatist. So Great Migration coming up north, you get the idea. Marcus Garvey, he's from Jamaica. He comes to America in the early 1900s. He sees that black people aren't doing so hot in America. And he basically comes up with this idea of black separatism and pan Africanism. He actually goes so far as to declare himself the president of Africa and argues for black separationism, the idea that black people and white people, that they can't ever really be next to one another, that there's never going to be a unity between them because race is this very, very real thing that is this completely immutable and immovable wall. And he's like a very good public speaker.
That's not what that means, honestly. It's not because white people and black people can never just exist in the same room. It's because of the history that has happened. We've gone through slavery and all these different things that our destiny needs to be determined by us. And the only way for us to be able to determine our own destiny is to detach from other people and their destinies. Like, if we remain subjugated to white people, we're never going to be able to find the highest potential of our own people, if that makes sense. Our highest potential is not just You know what I mean? Under white people. We can, I believe if black people, if we had our own society, I mean, we have in the past, but like it would far surpass, you know what I mean? Like what we have today, because what we would build it off of is spiritual principles. But we just need black people to, come back to those principles so that, it can get done. And that's what the channel is. So, yeah.
And he starts captivating a lot of black people, big black audience really across America. He travels to all the different urban centers that are now being filled with new black populations from the Great Migration. With all that going on, alongside him, all these different black ideologies are spawning. I touched on this very lightly in the Nation of Islam video because it kind of happened around that same time. And so because of this, from 1919 to 1931 alone, 8 separate black Hebrew Israelite organizations are founded all across these different urban areas, mostly located in Harlem. Now, this is where it begins to splinter because unlike the Nation of Islam, which has this one organization that goes across history, the black Hebrew Israelite-ism is more like an ideology than it is a specific group. There are several groups that espouse a very similar ideology. The ones that you're aware of all come from this central node here in the story. A very, very important man who, like Garvey, was not American by birth, actually was also a Caribbean immigrant. But before I tell you about him, be sure to like and subscribe, and let's hear a quick message from today's sponsor. Folks, the books are back. New name, new company, some old players, and some great new books. That's right, folks, this video is sponsored by The Right Books, your #1 source for alternative, taboo, banned, hard to get literature anywhere on the internet. They've got everything. Baptist churches that came out of the South and moved up north, but it then very steadily over time starts to de-emphasize Christianity and eventually full-on leaves it in favor of Orthodox Jewish practices. Now, what's actually kind of funny about him is that he actually explicitly was against anti-Semitism. He held to the idea that black people are the Israelites, but also that Jews are descendants of the Israelites. They've just been lightened over time. So he is Jewish, and so are Jews, but he's like more original Israelite, he's not bleached, right? Not a lot of breeding with the.
Yeah, and that today we don't really believe that they are true Jews. Like, I can show you this source right here. So this is the New Voyage to Italy, and we go to page 136. Oh, just a note on here. Um Back in these olden days, obviously this book was written in I think 1724. Um they used S's or F's in place of S's. So like if you get to this part where we're going to read from, like the author La Roma Santa affirms that the Jews think. It's not think, it's stink. It's just, they use F's where they should be using S's. I thought that was so interesting when I started researching this. But yeah, confirms the Jews stank and that their noisome smell vanishes after they are baptized. I know not why this should be reckoned wonderful, for those who are baptized are so carefully washed and cleansed that they must needs become sweet, though they really stunk before. But 'tis ridiculous to imagine that the Jews, as being Jews, have a peculiar smell. The Jews at Rome are very poor. Those who are poor are always nasty, and those who are nasty usually stink. That is the mystery. 'Tis also a vulgar error that the Jews are all black, for this is only true of the Portuguese Jews, who marry and always, one among another, beget children like themselves, and consequently the swarthiness of their complexion is entailed upon their whole race, even in the northern regions. But the Jews who are originally of Germany, Ashkenaz, those, for example, I have seen at Prague, are not blacker than the rest of their countrymen. though nobody can doubt those of the Jewish nation are destitute of all authentic tradition, and that as being Jews, they have not any particular knowledge, either of the laws and customs of their ancestors or even the Hebrew language. I have, however, been willing to take care to satisfy you in asking several of their rabbis in Germany and Italy, right, about what you have desired, and making them read some periods of Hebrew distinctly to observe how they pronounced it without without losing time here. I just think that's so funny. So, they, like, literally, right? We have two different races of Jews right here, and he's talking about the German and Italian Jews not even being able to pronounce Hebrew, and they were still learning it, and, getting into it. But there are black Jews who are dark black, you know what I mean? And it's just that's just been a thing for a while. So, you know, it does lead to the guy where he was saying about you know, there being two different types of Jews and one being actually more ancient. It leads credence to that.
With a white population going on, and Jews, they just did a little more mixing with the local white populations, and so he's not labeled as anti-Semitic and is actually widely respected by a lot of rabbis at the time. Wow, a guy who thinks that white people are innately evil yet thinks that Jews are his brothers. I wonder why they liked him so much. Continuing on, he founds a congregation that basically acts as a synagogue, and they have like weird converts over the years, and they're doing a lot of like charity publicly, so people start joining them, and they preach this message of black sovereignty, black hope, and they gain popularity for that. And they kind of just exist in Harlem for decades. Like they're just kind of this weird group that people either are part of.
Oh, to add on to that last point, first video, guys. Okay, first video. But to add on to that last point, um, yeah, I have now been in Cochin or his vicinity for upwards of 2 months and have got well acquainted with the Jews. They do not live in the city of Cochin, but in a town about a mile distant from it called Jews Town. It is almost wholly inhabited by the Jews who have two respectable synagogues. Among them are some very intelligent men who are not ignorant of the present history of nations. There are also Jews here from remote parts of Asia, so that this is the fountain of intelligence concerning the that people in the East. There being constant communication by ships with the Red Sea, the Persian Gulf, and the mouths of the Indus. The resident Jews are divided into two classes, called the Jerusalem or white Jews and the ancient or black Jews. So they have the Jews from Jerusalem, which are the white Jews, and the ancient ones are said to be black. So this was a scripture, not scripture, but source that I wanted to, hit off that last point. I just messed up my ordering, but yeah, and the ancient are black Jews. The white Jews reside at this place. The black Jews also have a synagogue here, but the great body of that tribe inhabit towns in the interior of the province. I have now seen most of both classes. My inquiry referred chiefly to their antiquity, their manuscripts, and their sentiments concerning the present state of their nation. And it goes more into the white Jews there. But yeah, this book right here, Christian Researchers in Asia with Notices of Translation of Scriptures, this was preached in 1811. So we're reading stuff from 1811 that's talking about this. This is before 1886, guys. So just remember that.
Or just think is kind of odd. And let it be known, they're still around. Like you can still go and find them. They still exist. They're still fighting to be recognized as official Jews, and they like take trips to Israel, go study in rabbinical schools. Like this is still an organization that exists.
Actually, it's so interesting. So as a black Hebrew Israelite, I worked at I worked at a store. I was a cashier, and one of the customers who came in, he was a black like rabbinical Jew, and like I'm a black Hebrew Israelite, and I was like, that's just so funny, and I was like, I need to talk to this guy, like so we can just exchange, and it was an interesting conversation. Um, he was anti-Palestine, which was pretty interesting. Like, but yeah, he was really coping hard for the IDF. I was like, you try to see other people's position, but it's like I can't even. it was a little hard to reason with him, but I laid out my points, and it was very interesting, very nice guy. But yeah, these people do exist, and they go straight with the Israel narrative,
This
at least
well
from what
into
I've
today. But that's
experienced.
not who you're interested in. And that's certainly not who I'm interested in because the story doesn't end with a peaceful little, albeit weird, congregation that forms. No, the story continues on. Because, see, it's in this organization, the Commandment Keepers, that one young man who shows himself to be a star student rises and then breaks away. That being the now infamous Abba Bivens. In 1969, following the civil rights movement, Abba Bivens believes that they're not getting enough, and that the Black Hebrew Israelites, they're not doing enough, that they have too much of a positive relationship with white people and with Jews. And he argues that no, actually, this line that we're Jews, but also the Jewish people are Jews, that's not true. That only the black people are Jews. That it's not really possible for black genes to get so mixed up that they become Jewish looking. And so he's the first to come up with the idea that actually the modern Jews that are living today are lying. And so in 1969, he breaks away and establishes the One West Camp, named after 1 West 125th Street in Harlem, a place where he sets up his new organization. His core beliefs are that he rejects Christianity and Judaism. You have to understand, the Black Hebrew Israelites of the Commandment Keepers, they follow Orthodox Judaism. Like, they believe themselves to be Orthodox Jews. Like, if you look at an Ethiopian Jewish service and their service, same thing, okay? Same language, same liturgy, it's the same thing. Abba Bivens says, no, because only we was Kangs. And so now he decides to create.
It's not because of that. It's because if I mean, obviously, this channel is very aware of the Talmud and certain things within the Talmud. So partially that is a reason. Another reason is because the Talmud and just rabbinical Judaism as a whole does not come from our ancestors. So it doesn't make sense for us to follow that. It's an offshoot. From our perspective, is like kind of just like a fan fiction. It's like I'm not gonna like just read that. You know what I mean? I'm not. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't apply to me. So yeah, and then yeah, we kind of break away from mainstream Christianity as well. Just I agree with that. Like just we break away in certain points of ideology, but I would still say that like Hebrew Israelites are Christians. Like they're not really not too far. We don't celebrate Christmas. We still keep dietary laws and things like that. But yeah.
His own theology, basically, his own liturgy, his own ideology surrounding his beliefs. So he takes with him a bunch of followers who respected him and liked him and kind of agreed with him, especially in the wake of the civil rights movement, and they found their own organization at One West. Now, he dies in 1973, largely under mysterious circumstances. It changes hands a couple very boring times and eventually lands in the hands of a man named Araya. Now, Araya takes what Bivens, God, these names are crazy. Araya takes what Bivens set up and runs with it, okay? He takes it all the way to its extreme, and he comes up with all the things that we now consider like Black Hebrew Israelitism. He comes up with the idea that the 12 tribes of Israel, that actually black people are one part of that, and that all.
Yeah. This 12 tribes chart, it needs to go. It's been years. I grew up on this chart, and there's still people who believe in this. It's going away now. Like a lot of people are coming to their senses. Like I don't know. When I was first like, we're not first researching, but when I first came to college and I started like really heavily researching this more just to make sure like my my points were like really there. I was trying to substantiate the claim of like, South Americans, Native Americans, and like, Mexicans all being Hebrews as well. But I could not find enough evidence. Like it was like a piece here, a piece there, but it didn't like, there was no correlation there. This tribe chart is terrible. What I think the 12 tribes of Israel are comprised of is the African diaspora, and I also believe there's a lot of Africans still in Africa who are Hebrews as well. So I don't even say it's just all black people. um I can't say it's all black people because obviously you have Ham and you have other tribes who, you know what I mean, aren't, you know what I mean, Hebrew, but I believe that like the Hebrew identity has been kind of dispersed to a certain extent. But I think American blacks, I think we hold the highest percentage just based off of the research that I've seen.
The like non-whites, all the global South people, so Latinos, Native Americans, etc., that they're all part of this, that they're all the 12 lost tribes, and that the white man is like literally the devil, saying that all whites, especially Jewish people who he considers white, are all Edomites, they're all part of Esau, and that the Chinese
Okay. Just hearing a white person say Edomites, Esau is so funny. But yeah, about that part, I'll say this: Jacob and Esau, like the Edomites. Um, I do believe it's a bloodline thing. I do believe that there are some white people who probably are related to Esau, who are related to Edom. But I think on a larger scale, on like the highest scale, it's really just a character archetype of a person. You know what I mean? Obviously, if you see how Jacob and Esau were described, Jacob was more of a like indwelling, you know what I mean, more spiritual person, spiritual man, and Esau represents the more physical man of the hunt man. Do you see any similarities? Obviously, you know, Esau was the hairy guy, you know what I mean, outside trying to shoot deer and all that. And then Jacob was the person who was inside, who liked music, you know what I mean, who did. It's an interesting thing. Like, let me actually, yeah, I'm actually gonna have to research this right now. Show y'all this because I just always think that's so interesting. Jacob. So Esau was impulsive and worldly. Jacob was thoughtful, strategic, and spiritually inclined. And this is just co-pilot. Obviously, this is just spark notes for you guys to kind of understand. But we don't use AI like that. Esau, the elder twin, was born red and hairy, earning him the name Edom, meaning red, which also symbolizes fiery, impulsive nature. This is where the correlation between white people being Esau and black people being Jacob and the Israelites comes from. Skilled hunter and man of the open country, spending his days outdoors and providing his father Isaac, which made him his father's favorite. Esau often valued immediate gratification over long-term blessings, as seen when he sold his birthright to Jacob for a bowl of lentil stew, demonstrating a tendency to prioritize physical needs over spiritual inheritance. Obviously, you can see that white people, if you look at them through the lens of short-term gratification, they sell their soul for, you know what I mean, all these different things that they get. Your soul is like that is the part of you that, that's priceless, but through little things of society, little pieces of themselves get chopped up and distributed, and they look at themselves and there's nothing left. And that's why I believe all this nihilism comes about from the white race is because, you know what I mean, like the that's like when you treat things as nothing means, like they don't mean anything, then it won't mean anything, you know what I mean. It works both ways. But this seemingly sold his birthright to Jacob for a bowl of lentil stew, demonstrating a tendency to prioritize physical needs over spiritual inheritance. He is described as carnal and self-gratifying. So think, like, and this is one thing that like I just notice in, like, I don't know. Like I feel like the black people that I know, like it's like at least the culture that I've seen, like, and I think white people are on this as well, but like at least in my generation, we're more trying to go towards health and stuff like that, where a lot of like the dudes are like Zen chewing, smoking cigarettes, even though we know for a fact that they're bad for us. Like I that's one thing that I just don't get. I'm like we know this, you know what I mean? But it's short-term gratification, you know. This entire society in America is built off of short-term gratification. That's why we have shorts, reels, and TikToks, you know. But yeah, despite his impulsiveness, Esau later reconciled with Jacob, showing capacity for forgiveness and familial loyalty. Now, let's talk about Jacob and see if there's any parallels between him and, you know, the kind of archetype, stereotype of black people, maybe not stereotype. Jacob, the younger twin, was born grasping Esau's heel, symbolizing his strategic and sometimes deceptive nature. He was a quiet man who stayed among the tents, reflecting a more contemplative and studious personality, and was favored by his mother, Rebecca. Jacob, and so you understand that these are metaphors and stuff like that. I believe that him being favored by his mother, Rebecca, showed balance within himself as like, you know, being able to be a man and also be like favored by the feminine, I feel like. I also think that obviously him being like stayed in the tents, you know what I mean, more of an indwelling person. Like that just goes more with the feminine, I guess, like idea or construct. You know, Jacob this demonstrated foresight and determination as seen when he acquired Esau's birthright and later received Isaac's blessing through careful planning. Spiritually, Jacob is portrayed as having a heart for God, seeking divine guidance to becoming the patriarch through whom God's covenant with Abraham continued. His life reflects perseverance, faith, and eventual reconciliation both with God and with Esau. So, this is kind of like the Hebrew Israelite view of like the world and stuff like that, and that we want to be in like the Jacob mindset. You know what I mean? Jacob, he wrestled with God. That was Jacob, right? I hope so. But but this is the understand that we want to go with. Right.
These are Moabites. Now that I don't fully under. They just kind of added that in there, I guess. They also believe in a
Yeah, I don't think Chinese are Moabites. I don't think the Chinese or like a lot of the Native Americans were accounted for in the Bible. I think it was a regional thing. You know what I mean? While it is inspired by God, it is written by human hands and seen through human eyes. So like they're not. It's not a geography book. It is a book about ethics and about you know human instruction rather than just like mere
strict
facts.
doctrine of salvation by race, meaning that only black people will get saved. Only them. And the main thing being that modern Jews just stole, they're Europeans who stole the whole identity in order to try and steal the covenant that the Jews had with God and like make themselves the chosen people. Now, this
As well, obviously, don't believe that. This verse kind of just explains like how Hebrews see, because obviously we are a biblical people. We go by the Bible. So here in Revelation chapter 7, verse 9, it says, After this I looked, and there was before me a great multitude that no one could count from every nation, not just black people, not just African people, people, um, not just Chinese people, but every nation, tribe, people, and language standing before the throne and before the Lamb. They were wearing white robes and were holding palm branches in their hands and cried out in a voice saying, Salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb. And the angels were standing around the throne, around the elders and the four living creatures, and they fell down on their faces of the throne and worshiped God, saying, Amen, praise and glory. So as we can see, um, these are like the saints, and they're of all races. So that is like I feel like the biggest thing is that you, as a Hebrew Israelite, you're not supposed to believe that. And I think there's a lot of Hebrew Israelites that do. A lot of the ones on the street corners say that. And I was on the street corner before, like when I was younger and stuff like that. But like, and like, that was not what we said though. But yeah, I think just because there is a lot of people who are encountering this through online. Do not get swept in that because you are out of line with the Bible. This is what everything comes to. And if we are in the energy of Jacob, then we have to plan long term and understanding that long term that everyone will be a part of this. So we just have to be the light now, and whoever's with us now, you know what I mean, will go whether they are black or white. But at the end of the day, truth is truth, and the fact that black people are the original Hebrews of the Bible does matter at the same time. So
This is the definitive start of like crazy Black Hebrew Israelitism. And they have like a significant amount of influence in their community because, again, they've been in Harlem now for like almost 100 years. Like they've been there a very, very long time. So this is no longer this new, strange group. They've been in the region for a while. And so this is kind of the main organization that then breaks down into several key organizations, which make up the bulk of modern street Black Hebrew Israelitism. But all of that takes us into today. Modern Black Hebrew Israelitism is really kind of split into four different camps. They're all loosely around this, Abba Bivens, Araya, like One West camp, okay? But they split off into four distinct groups, which all do different things. Now, we're going to break down what those groups are. The first being the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. They formed in the late 90s. Most of the clips you see of the Black Hebrew Israelites, that's them. That's the ISUPK, okay? That's like they do the most street outreach. They preach on corners. They wear the like weird outfits. They wear those outfits because they think that's what biblical Israelites wore. And so they put them on and they preach at the white people, and their goal is to grab more lost souls, that being, black people who are not a part of them, and bring them into their organization. They also play a very significant role in attempting to help out people in projects, impoverished peoples, and this is why in the 90s especially they flourished, because if you know anything about 90s Manhattan, wasn't exactly the nicest place in the world. They are led by a guy named General Yohana, who is a character, to say the least. I'll let him speak for himself a little bit.
Oh, wait, you look like you've been in hell. I know. Yeah, boy, you've been in hell. Look at the demons on you.
Praising Hitler, saying the Nazis were cool, and saying the Holocaust didn't happen.
Yeah, no, we support Hitler.
On the opposite side of them is
Hitler. Just we don't support Hitler. That's just not our guy. No.
the Israel United in Christ. Now they follow all the same ideology, but then believe that Jesus is the Messiah. So let it be known, ISUPK, they don't believe in Jesus as the Messiah. They kept that part of Judaism, believe that Jesus was a false teacher. Some of them even believe that Jesus was the first white man to skin suit Judaism. Lord forgive me for even saying that. But Israel United in Christ, they believe that no, Jesus, he actually was the Messiah. He was the most holy and enlightened black man, and we all need to follow after him. You might have seen them before.
mean, if Jesus was the greatest man, to this point, I guess he would be the best black man because he's just the best man in general, I guess.
wear purple. They're the ones who talk a lot about we was Kang specifically because they wear purple to signify their royal.
I feel like he just needs to disrespect us at any point that he can. I don't understand that. I don't know. I don't have anything against this guy. I think as a Hebrew, I want to put that example out there of, hearing insults and letting it roll off our back in the time of rage bait, it's to the point I've seen I've seen so many memes, you know what I mean? So many things that are supposed to spike your cortisol. Like it's at a certain point, bro, it's just we are adults. But
Realness. They do a lot of social media outreach and a lot of recruiting. And actually, they're all around the area that I live in. I see them sometimes, like outside of the Walmart in Kearney. Like they're around, but they do a lot more like actively trying to recruit people. Then there is the Great Millstone, often abbreviated as GMS. Now these guys, they're more like literary. So their whole thing is they're very, very biblically literate, and like they do a lot of YouTube sermons and sermons talking about the Bible, and they kind of base their ideology specifically around the King James Bible. They attract a lot of like former Pentecostals and Baptists, people who study the Old Testament a lot in the Black community. They're led by this gentleman, a man named Elder Tahar. And then finally, there's the Sakari, led by a guy who calls himself the Guerrilla Hebrew, Alazar Ban Lawya. Now let it be known, it's the ISUPK that's the biggest one. That's the one that all of you know. When you think of Black Hebrew Israelites, you are most likely thinking of...
So right here, I would think IUIC is the bigger one. Now, I will say I probably was around them more just because I was in a family. I was never a part of IUIC or ISP, any of these four actually. But like I definitely, I think I might have went to like one IUIC thing maybe or something. But like they are more like, I feel like family oriented. ISUPK is more like, get off the streets, young blood. Come with us. Stand out here with us. Because they're in like, you know, like inner city Harlem. But like IUIC is like all over the country, and like they have, I feel like, more presence. But then again, maybe their social media is just better. I'm not sure.
ISUPK. That's like the signature, wearing the weird outfits, yelling on the street about Black people. That's them. But all four of these organizations share the same theology around salvation by race. That race is like connected to the spirit, to the soul in like a really, really meaningful way. And that is the determinant of whether or not you will be saved. And these four organizations...
I don't believe that. I do not. I mean, at least not all Hebrews believe that. I don't believe that. But yeah, race, obviously Christ is not a respecter of person, to the Jew nor to the Greek. Yeah.
Have gotten themselves in all sorts of controversy. Now, all four of them are recognized by the SPLC as hate organizations, obviously. Kind of funny how that's the line, isn't it? That you can say that white people are the devil and are innately evil, but the minute you say that Jews aren't Jews, well, now you're a hate group. I found in there. But moving on, they've done all sorts of things. They've caused viral controversies. They've actually like literally committed crimes and like shot people. I mean, they've gotten themselves in all sorts of shenanigans.
And we've been also accused of crimes that, we've never done. As this video right here will.
This is why ADL President Jonathan Greenblatt's repeated false accusations against African Israelite communities are an existential threat to the peace and safety of every single person of color in the U.S. and abroad. Whether you're an Israelite, a Christian, or Muslim of color, historically, these types of false accusations are the prelude to violence against the Black community.
So with all that said, there's a range of practice and observance. So there are plenty of Black Jews who go to what you might call traditional Jewish synagogue. And there are other communities like the Black Hebrew Israelites. Now, there's a range of practice even among Black Hebrew Israelites. There's a large community of them in Israel who identify as Jewish in a traditional way. And then you have the guys in Times Square who observe in a way that's not so traditional, I would say.
They would say y'all aren't Jews. It would say that, what they say, white people are not the original Jews, basically.
Correct.
Yeah.
And look, they're entitled to their beliefs until that justifies shooting Jewish people with pellet guns on Staten Island. Or like, this is December. 3 years ago, December 2019, 2 Black Hebrew Israelites went into a kosher supermarket in Jersey City and killed 3 people.
Look at the body language too. It's demanding. It's declarative. You know what I mean? It's so sure of itself.
Because they said they weren't real Jews.
Wow.
Shot them cold dead in a kosher supermarket.
There has been considerable reporting that these 2 suspects are linked to the Black Hebrew Israelite movement. We have evidence that both suspects expressed interest in this group, but we have not definitively established any formal links to that organization or to any other group. Based on the available evidence, we believe that the two shooters were acting on their own.
And mind you, expressed interest could be just a Facebook post. It could be a like. You know what I mean? Because obviously this is the FBI investing them, so they could have just liked it. You know what I mean? Like expressed interest 4 years ago was never a part of any group. This is a bold-faced lie.
So when we talk about what is anti-Semitism, it's Black Hebrew Israelites this weekend. What today's Monday? Tuesday.
Wednesday. It's going to air on Wednesday.
Sorry. So it is over this past weekend in Staten Island on Sunday, a Jewish man who he must have been Orthodox because you could identify that he was Jewish, and his son were shot by a young man with a pellet gun as they came out of
guns. I did see that, yeah.
And so when he was asked by the police, they said it was a hate crime. He said, "How can it be a hate crime if I'm a Hebrew?"
And now for the truth. This is the picture of the man arrested and charged for the crime of which Jonathan Greenblatt implies was committed by a black man, a Black Hebrew Israelite man. However, the person who committed the crime is called Jason Kish, which is a Jewish name, who is a white Caucasian male. You see, Jonathan Greenblatt's and the ADL's practice of making accusations against so-called Negroes goes back many, many years. In fact, the ADL was founded when the courts failed to convict a black man instead of convicting Ashkenazi Jew Leo Frank.
So yeah, maybe I should react to this video again. Because, yeah, this is a very interesting video about what we like, certain things that we go through.
Shenanigans and general debauchery.
It's a lot of politicized things that happen to us. So it's more than what meets the eye.
But all of this ties into a bigger picture about faith, the black community, and American history. Because like I said, I mean, it's a weird story. It's kind of a messed up story, but it is an American story. It's one that happened in America with American people. And it happened because of very uniquely American circumstances, that being the Great Migration, the end of slavery, the Harlem Renaissance. I mean, all these things that we learn about in school as key American events, especially in the modern urban areas of our country. And much like Manifest Destiny, which brought Mormonism with it, which has its own wacky theology, it kind of goes to show that when there are big migrations, when there are these big openings of belief, conditions, societal transference, all these things, that it becomes a breeding ground for ideology and for sometimes wacky beliefs. Now, I hesitate to call them a cult because they don't have a central leadership. There are obviously prominent figures found within it who have gained notoriety.
Hebrews like that exist. I have to make this channel because I there needs to be somebody out there who's like, I don't know. I don't feel like there's anybody, especially my age, who are like really talking about this and not just with a law over spirit mindset. You know, like it's supposed to be spirit over the law, but you know.
But they're not. We should pray for these people that they like stop believing this insane nonsense. Because I think we can all definitively say that this is insane nonsense, and I'm not.
Let me know after this reaction. Is it completely insane nonsense? Mind you, I only gave you a taste. That's not all everything we have. That was just sources to refute what he was specifically saying.
Faith channel by any means. And I have no ground to stand on to tell people what is piety and what isn't, or what is the truth and what isn't the truth. I certainly am not God, and I'm definitely not one of his saints. But I think we can all definitively say that, yeah, this is a wacky belief. Like, very clearly, the ancient Israelites were not sub-Saharan African people. And everything they're saying would imply a thousands upon thousands of years long conspiracy entirely levied against this group of 20 million people. But then again,
So this is the Scripture Gazetter Geographical Historical Volume 1. So we're just going to show you guys the cover of this book right here. We're going to see what year it's from. Scriptural Gazetter, Geographical, Historical, and Statistical Account of the empires, kingdoms, countries, provinces, cities, towns, villages, mountains, valleys, seas, lakes, rivers, etc. Mentioned in the Old and New Testament, their ancient history, natural productions, and present state, an essay on the importance and advantage of the study of the sacred geography. Okay, this is by William Fleming, Edinburgh. All right. We're going to start right here. Others allege that the Jews were numerous in Egypt in the reign of Isis, where they became so burdensome that the Egyptians sent them into different countries under their two leaders, Hierosolomius and Judas. Some say that I think that's the time of Maccabees. Some say that they were Ethiopians who compelled to change their habitation in the reign of the king called Cephas, although it is strange that Tacitus could suppose that the Ethiopians, who are known to be blacks, could be the ancestors of the Jews, who are known to be. There are those, continues Tacitus, who report the Jews were Assyrians who, wanting a territory, obtained a part of Egypt, and soon after settled in cities of their own in the country of the Hebrews and the districts of Syria, which lay nearest to them, while others claim for them an origin more eminent, alleging that they are the people celebrated by Homer under the name Solomai, who founded the nation and gave the name Hierosolymia to its capital city. The former of these opinions is near to the truth. In both of them, Tacitus might have borrowed from Josephus himself, who mentions the latter notion in the seventh book of his Antiquities. All right. From the above particulars, extravagant as they are, some facts can easily be adduced. The first, that many foreigners were obliged to quit Egypt with the Israelites, and that therefore the latter were confounded with the race with whom they had no connection. The second, that the Israelites were often taken for Ethiopians or Cushites, who, like themselves, became the objects of hatred of the Egyptians. And the third, that a tribe of Ethiopians was expelled from Egypt about the time or with the Israelites. It need scarcely be remarked, says Mr. Faber, that the fable of drowning a race of lepers in the sea, while such as escaped fled into the wilderness, has plainly been taken for the destruction of the Pharaoh and his host in the Arabian Gulf, the punishment being ingeniously transferred from the oppressors to the oppressed. But it may not be improper to observe that the malicious tale of the Israelites being all afflicted with an inveterate cutaneous distemper, which seems to have been so ingeniously taken up by the pagans, has been plainly enough originated from the circumstance of Moses being miraculously struck with a temporary leprosy. Yeah, oof, that's a lot. That's a mouthful. So obviously, right here, as we can see, the Israelites were confused with people who looked like this. Goodness gracious. The Israelites are being confused with people who look like this. Now, you see these locks? Like, oh my goodness. Why do they have to make people look lighter? You see this right here? It's always a thing. Because I think to a certain extent they're trying to get away from this truth, like in any way. Because I'm like, this shit is real. This stuff is real. My bad. But like, look at these people. These are Cushites, and then obviously we know what Ethiopians look like. So as we can see right here, the Israelites were often taken for Ethiopians or Cushites. What that looks like right there. So It's just such a crazy, crazy thing.
Again,
Thousands of
who
years
knows? I mean, a
conspiracy.
whole other community wants us to believe that there's a gigantic conspiracy labeled against 16 million people. And that's a belief that if you disagree with, you don't get to have a bank account. So I don't know. But now you know a little more about the Black Hebrew Israelites. And so now maybe you at home, if you're one of the like 5 Black Will Sexton viewers, can know exactly what you mean when you very proudly say to the world, we was Kangs. Folks, that is going to do it for us today on this episode of The Narrative. I hope you enjoyed. Kind of a bit of a fun one today. Like I said, I'm kind of on a run of
But yeah. So to wrap it up, Black Hebrew Israelites are not your enemy. We go by the scripture of Ephesians 6, verse 12, which says, our enemy is not flesh and blood. Literally, you could not be our enemy. We go against spirits and principalities in high places and in high parts of government. We go against, the controlling forces of this world. You know what I mean? That's the highest fight that we fight. And that's why we have to be a set apart people, because not everybody, has the knowledge to be even able to fight a fight on that level. And that's what I'm trying to do with this channel. Um, so yeah. First video. Let me know in the comments how I did. Please subscribe. Um, tell me what you thought. Are you gonna be a Hebrew Israelite now? I would love to have you. But yeah, we would love that. But yeah, I'm gonna have some more videos coming out. I'm gonna figure out how I'm gonna edit this. And yeah, let me actually get to my thing. But